Education ideas in thought and learning basically fell into two camps, rationalists and empiricists. Rationalists believe that thought and learning came from within. I think, therefore I am. Empiricists believe that knowledge was found outside ourselves using our senses to find it. Children were a tabula rasa, a blank tablet, to quote John Locke. These two basic ideas prevailed until the onset of the Industrial Revolution. Laborers were being required to read and think for themselves, not just following along a passed-down trade. Scientists started to look at the nature of learning. Piggybacking on the work of Descartes, Kant, and Darwin, psychologists began conducting tests to discover how people learn and the best approach to learning. The first real movement to gain traction was behaviorism. Developed by B.F. Skinner, behaviorism focused on the study of observable behaviors rather than mental activities. Skinner, together with Pavlov, both showed learning could occur through two forms of conditioning, operant and classic. Classical conditioning is how Pavlov got his dogs to salivate when they heard a bell. Operant conditioning uses a reward and punishment system, as Skinner showed in his pigeon experiment, to increase learning. However, behaviorism never addressed how learning occurred in the brain or how learning occurs in the absence of reward or punishments. Social cognition, or cognitivism, soon followed behaviorism. Lev Vygotsky claimed a child's ability to learn is greatly influenced by their culture. An example of this would be language. Through interaction with others, learning is advanced through the use of language. Jean Piaget added the idea to cognitivism that children build cognitive structures depending on the stages of the child's development. He described 4 cognitive structures: sensory motor from 0 to 2 years, pre-operational from 2 to 7 years, concrete operational from 7 to 12 years, and formal operational from 12 to 15 years. These cognitive structures change as children are exposed to different learning environments, changing in relation to what the child may have experienced. Critics of cognitivism would say it treats knowledge as a given and absolute, does not account enough for individuality, and has little emphasis on affective characteristics. Albert Bandura helped develop social learning theory in the late 70s. Social learning theory states that learning occurs through observing others in a social context, through the interaction of cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences. Bandura felt reinforcement and punishment affected behavior more than learning. In social learning theory, 4 things must happen for children to learn. Attention, the learner must pay attention. Retention, the learner must remember what happened. Motor reproduction, the learner must be capable of replicating the behavior. Motivation, the learner must want to replicate the behavior and believe that he is capable of doing so. Critics of social learning theory believe it treats students as passive receivers of stimuli and doesn't take into account how emotions may be connected to learning. Understanding that a student's previous experiences have influence on what and how they learn is very important. Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory suggests that students can have a variety of strengths and intelligence. His theory states that there are 8 intelligences that teachers need to account for in the classroom: verbal linguistic, logical mathematical, visual spatial, body kinesthetic, musical rhythmic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. Students need to use metacognition to think about how they best learn and think. Teachers need to craft lessons and units activating as many intelligences as they can to facilitate learning in the classroom. Critics of Gardner's theory would say that there is little quantitative evidence that supports multiple intelligences. It would also suggest a departure from core curricula and standards. Out of the study of the brain came constructivism. In the most general sense, the contemporary view of learning is that people construct new knowledge and understandings based on what they already know and believe. Bransford et al., 2000, page 10. Constructivists use 5 overarching principles: posing problems of emerging relevance to learners, structuring learning around big ideas or primary concepts, seeking and valuing students' point of view, adapting curriculum to address students' suppositions, assessing student learning in the context of teaching. Brooks and Brooks, 1993. Students should not repeat what the teacher or textbook provide, but internalize the information that is around them, connect it to their prior knowledge and experiences, and generate their own meaning. Neuroscience has also brought about a deeper understanding of the brain areas and their use in learning. Let's take a closer look at the brain. The brain is broken up into 4 lobes. The occipital lobe. This is where the major vision processing area occurs. The temporal lobe. Hearing, auditory information, and memory get processed in the temporal lobe. The parietal lobe. This is the main sensory information lobe. The frontal lobe. Thought, behavior, and reasoning are all processed inside the frontal lobe. One of the most impressive ideas to come out of the brain-based learning is the idea of brain plasticity. It was once believed that neural pathways were set once children reach a certain age, but we now know the brain is continuously able to form and rewire new neural connections in response to stimulus. Someone who has lost their sight in their later years, the brain will rewire occipital lobe pathways for sensory information. Research has also shown that in adults, learning has shown an increase in brain mass in certain areas. Blakemore and Firth note that London taxi drivers have an increased mass in their hippocampus compared to non-cab drivers, particularly in the area dealing with direction. It appears that there are a variety of ways to help students learn in the classroom. As teachers, it is our job to make sure we are making good judgments about what research to use and what not to use. Thank you.